And welcome on in, everybody, to another edition of the WyoNation Roundup. I am your host, Chad Smith, riding solo tonight for this holiday edition of the Roundup because I did not want to leave all you out in WyoNation hanging as the football offseason turns as quickly as the season. And there's lots of Wyoming news to get to. So I wanted to make sure that we got something out. So if you were out and about shopping, or if you're out driving to see family, that you had something to listen to talking about the Wyoming Cowboys. So welcome on in. Great to be here. And while you're here, hit that subscribe button, of course. Hit the notifications so you know when we are going live with new videos. And remember now, we are now audio going out into the interwebs with many different podcasting platforms. So if you are not a person who likes video, you can consume the WyoNation Roundup via audio on all your major platforms. And if there's a platform that you like to use that we're not on yet, let us know and we'll make sure that we get on there. But we're on iTunes, we're on iHeartMusic, we're on Amazon, we're on Spotify. So good stuff there. Mr. Brad Reed getting the work done there for the WyoNation crew. So we hope you enjoy that. But we are here today to talk about the offensive coordinator hire and then that darn transfer portal. So again, I'm Chad Smith at WyoNation blog. Let's roll in to some Wyoming football talk. And we'll start with what seems like weeks ago now already, after the weekend of the college football playoff and just the way the news cycle rolls. But on Friday afternoon, the Wyoming Cowboys announced the hiring of a new offensive coordinator. And it was a name that we did not hear a pipe about from anywhere. And I'll just say in general, right, the search was very quiet. And Wyoming does a good job at that. Mainly, right, because there's not a whole lot of media attention towards Wyoming searches. And so things kind of come out of the blue. And so did this one. We got the national report. I think one of the first guys to get it might have been actually NFL beat reporters reporting that Christian Taylor, who is currently an offensive and defensive analyst for the Buffalo Bills, would be named Wyoming's offensive coordinator. Now, he does have extensive college experience. He's been an OC at 3 different spots before. First, I think in 2014 was his first taste as an OC at the Division III level with Illinois Wesleyan. And then he moved up from there to go to San Diego, University of San Diego, the Toros, Division 1AA FCS there for a couple seasons, and then to William and Mary for 3 seasons. And that's where he really cut his teeth, got a lot of national recognition, and then turned that into a job with the Buffalo Bills because they have several coaches from guess where? William and Mary, including the head coach, Sean McDermott. So Jay Savell reportedly liked Taylor the best the whole time, and I do believe that Taylor was one of the first 2 interviews that Savell talked about when he mentioned that he was starting the interview process. And so reports say that Savell actually flew to Buffalo and interviewed him. And so we'll get into his record here, but just the thing, he will be staying with the Buffalo Bills until the conclusion of their season, which I find a little bit odd. I don't know about you do. But I suppose that could be a good thing because, right, he could be making calls to recruits. And, he might be on a web call at the Bills facility talking to someone, and he might just run into a certain Wyoming Cowboy there. That's the other question of people speculating about is, did Josh Allen have anything to do with this? I guess we'll find out when Taylor is introduced formally, probably around spring ball. And they might have a press conference before then. We'll be interested to see what they do because we'll kind of be in the dead season by the time the Bills, who are hoping to make a long NFL playoff run into late January, early February. So hopefully when Taylor does get to town, they will have a press conference for him and we won't have to wait until spring ball. But I have done some research on Taylor. So let me pull up something here for you all. I do believe it's this one. Here we go. Let's get this up here. So here are some facts. I did a lot of digging into Christian Taylor, into his tendencies, his philosophy. And let's just put this out there first and foremost. I think giving the circumstances that Jay Savell is in and the football program is in at this point in time, I think Christian Taylor is probably about as close to an A+ hire as you can get, considering that, right, you're not going to get an established FBS guy to come and take this job when there's a really good chance, right, if things go wrong, that the whole staff will be flushed out 1 year from now. So he found somebody who has some national recognition and has been really successful at the FCS level. So let's get into what he is all about. So if you remember on our last roundup, I was talking about our wish list, and it wasn't a list of names, but it was a list of characteristics that we wanted people or a person who would be the next OC to have. And one of mine was somebody who has a philosophy and not a system. And I think this is a guy who fits that 100%. And you can see it here. So he doesn't run the air raid. It's not pure West Coast. It is a modern hybrid offense. And you can add some spread in there too. A lot of spread elements. So there's some air raid, there's some West Coast, there's some spread. It's a hybrid offense built on the wide zone. Play action passing is huge in his offense, as well as pre-snap motion. So again, he's a coach who has a philosophy, but not a system. Because again, really systems need players, right? It's like plug and play. It's like, hey, I need a wide receiver who's 6'6", runs a 4.5, and can throw deep balls. What Taylor does is he analyzes and evaluates his players and then molds the offense to fit their skills. And that's all we've been asking for as Wyoming fans for a long time. So I think to have somebody who's going to run a modern offense, that's great. We'll get more into the offense here, but as I said, proven OC at the FCS level at San Diego. As I said, the Toros from 2018 and the 2019 seasons, top 10 in scoring in those seasons, and then very highly passing efficiency. So what I can tell you there is, looking at the stats, is they were more of a balanced team there at San Diego. They're, not quite 50-50. They passed the ball more than they ran it, but passing efficiency is off the charts with this guy, right? And that's what we're looking for at Wyoming. Then, after 2 years at San Diego, he spent 3 seasons as the offensive coordinator at William & Mary. And in that 2022 season is where they really set the world on fire, went 11-2, averaged 33 points a game, which I do believe ranked in the top 5 in FCS in scoring. So if there's a really good article from The Athletic, I posted it on my Twitter at WyoNation Blog, so you can find it there, of how creative this guy is and the concepts that they were using at William & Mary. And he made it on the national scene. He got an article written about him as an FCS coordinator for the stuff he was doing. So really good to see there. I will also say that even though he kind of came off the radar here with Wyoming, he was in line for some jobs. 2 seasons ago, he was heavily considered by the University of Miami, Florida, to get their OC job. I'm not sure if he interviewed or not, but last offseason, he was interviewed, and it was being reported that it was pretty much a done deal that he was going to Virginia Tech. So I think this is, as I said, I think this makes it a pretty good hire for Wyoming that they landed a guy who was getting a strong look from two Power 4 schools. And I don't know what happened to Virginia Tech. It was being reported by everybody that, right, it was gonna happen. And I don't know what led to that falling apart. I could not dig into anywhere to see why it didn't happen, and maybe that will come out as we look more at the record. So, this third bullet point, this guy runs the ball. So at William and Mary, they're about a 60-40 run to pass. They ran the dickens out of the football, boys and girls. And I think that's what Wyoming football has to get back to. Past couple seasons, we've been more balanced, but right, the quarterback play has not been there. So Jay Savell mentioned that in the running game, he wanted somebody who was multiple, right? Who could use different concepts. And this is where I think this guy ticked the box for Savell is, right? He uses air raid concepts, West Coast spread, and he uses those in the running game as well. We're going to see inside zone. We're going to see counter. We're going to see gap schemes. You're going to see a mix of different stuff based on the type of players and personnel you have. And that just really makes, defense hard to play when you're not sure what's coming. In the passing game, it's built off the run, play action passes, bootlegs. So that's your West Coast influence there. And then Y cross concepts, which are coming out of the air raid, where you're getting guys on quick slants over the middle, opening up that middle of the field and using those outside wide receivers to make the defense cover from sideline to sideline. So his passing games are very, very interesting. Motion and eye manipulation. This is like the big thing here, right? So it leverages the defense's pre-snap by just getting in different formations and a lot of motion to try to, get defenses to signal if they're in man and zone, to try to figure out where is the weakness of the defense they may be in. And a lot of it is just eye candy, right? So I think this is a pretty huge thing for Wyoming to get a guy like this, because football, offensive football is not about lining up in a bunch of different formations and trying to confuse people. What this guy, the book on Christian Taylor is, they'll run out of 11 personnel, 12 personnel, and get in different formations in those sets. And they'll make it look different, but they're running the same 3 or 4 key concepts out of different formations, making it look like they're doing one thing, but running the same plays out of different formations. And I think that's something that Wyoming has not done well in these past 2 years, of course, is just having an identity and sticking with it. And I think this guy's going to do it. Second to last, a very QB-friendly system where decision making is very quick and it is built on efficient throws to get the ball out quick and fast to wide open guys. And a lot of these concepts in this air raid and then his power spread, I'll say, it really is triple option football, to where you have the option to have a quarterback run, to hand it off to the running back, or hit a tight end or a wide receiver on a short route. And that's all right there, and it happens quick, and it's just reading the defense and picking the right solution to what you're seeing. So the keys are big there. So again, I'm really excited about that, because Wyoming has been trying to do this, step back and throw the ball stuff, and we just haven't had the offensive line play to do it, and we don't have the quarterback talent or development as of yet to run it. So I think this guy is really has a way to develop quarterbacks, and I think it's going to be a really, really good thing to see what he can do with some of these young guys, and then more importantly, who he can snap out of the portal, because I do believe Wyoming's starting quarterback for next year is not on the roster, if I had to guess. And then lastly, it's a run-first offense that's built for the cold, the wind, and Mountain West play. So I think this is a really good hire by Jay Savell. Now, granted, none of us knew who this guy was, right? Unless you were like a William and Mary guy or like a really big Buffalo Bills dork who knew that this guy was on staff, right, doing the grunt work. He worked on both sides of the ball for the Bills, mainly breaking down film, doing scouting for the next coming opponent. So even though he's an offensive guy, this year he is more of a defensive coach because he was studying film offensively of the Bills' next opponent and breaking down tendencies for the defense, so they knew what they were going to be facing. So kind of like an advanced scout type of guy there, breaking film down. So I think his NFL experience will certainly help him out. And I'm sure with as open-minded as he is about the different systems that he runs, I'm sure he's going to find some wrinkles in the NFL that he could add to his system. So there's a nice little graphic I made for you that kind of breaks down what he does. And if you read the stuff and watch some of his games, really creative. So there was a season at William and Mary where he used what I read as a 2 quarterback system. And I'm like, well, that's not good. You don't want, a quarterback, the Russian shuttling in and out every play or every drive, right? Because we've seen that at Wyoming, it doesn't work. But no, he actually did what I joked about, I think, when we had Chambers and Williams, was get them both out there. So there was a season where he was running a lot of plays where both quarterbacks who could run the ball, one would be lined up as a running back, one would be lined up as the quarterback, and you never knew who was going to get the ball. It was going to be a direct snap to one guy, a direct snap to the other. There's a famous play out there that you'll see in the Athletic article where they had both quarterbacks out there on I think it was like a 3rd and goal from like the 3. And they get the quarterback, one of the quarterbacks goes in motion and then stops when he's behind the center and pretends like he's going to take a snap and do a quarterback sneak. But what they do is they snap the ball between the guy's legs because he had his legs spread out to the other quarterback who got around the edge and scored a touchdown. So there's multiple things like that where you can see just the creativity they have of getting the defense confused, running some creative stuff with motion and getting different players in there. So I'm really excited to see what he'll do. And I don't want all those bells and whistles right away, right? Let's get the fundamentals down. And I think it looks like that he has a track record of really getting people to improve their offenses quickly. And that's what Wyoming is going to need this season. So, yeah, if you are watching here, I see you on Twitter and on YouTube. If you have any comments, questions about the OC, pop them in and we'll talk about them because this show is really for you. But those were kind of what I saw looking at this guy's film. And while I wait for some potential comments, I'll tell you that on WyoNation.com, I'll try to post some of these links on the message board. But if you want to get a feel for what this guy's about, there are several full William and Mary games, TV copies on YouTube that you can watch. I watched one. I watched them play Maine, which was a 28-0 win that they had a couple years ago. And you can kind of get an idea. And formationally, it's a lot like we see with Wyoming. And you'll be interested to see if, Salvel has some influence there. I know in the past couple of years, right, we've used the fullback. So I wonder if the fullback position is going to be something that they're going to mix in there. And I think he will as a multiple person, right? Getting the fullback the ball, perhaps using them in the run game, using them in the short passing game. There's a lot of things you can do. So I'm really excited to see what this offense could look like. And I wonder if he's going to be able to use his recruiting connections. So again, he was down in San Diego for a couple years. He may have some good contacts down there still to recruit some guys out of Southern California. At one point in time, when he was at the University of San Diego, he was with, they said Hoke, but I don't think that's right. I don't think they know what they're talking about. I don't think Hoke was at San Diego. He was at San Diego State, of course, but he was a recruiting coordinator at Michigan for a season. And so he may have quite a bit of recruiting contacts in the upper Midwest which Wyoming has done good in the past. So if Wyoming can get into Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, places where they've had success before, Illinois, I think would be really good from a recruiting standpoint. So yeah, I will post that on WyoNation.com, and you can check out the article as well as a couple of these full game replays of William and Mary, and we'll kind of get you can kind of get a feel for what they do. But they run the ball really well, and again, it's multiple. They're running inside, they're running outside, they're running counters. It's really a good mix of different stuff, and it really I think keeps defenses guessing, and they really get some push off the ball. So the interesting thing here will be, will he have any say in the offensive coaching staff? It was highly noted in an article I read that when he got to William and Mary, he never worked with anybody there, and I don't think he fired anybody. So he worked with the group that was there, and maybe that's the plan here is that they know that he's able to teach his system to the other coaches, and then they're able to teach the players. But I think it might be beneficial if Wyoming can get somebody who he's coached with, who understands his thinking, to who can help teach the system to those players. So I think that could be a real important factor, and we'll see what happens here once he gets to Laramie, which could be a while, could be a good 6 or 7 weeks before the Bills season is over. So we will see what happens there. So Wyoming has an OC, and he's going to be tasked with getting Wyoming to increase that scoring output, which was at a very low. Oh, we've already forgot where we ended up at, right? Was it like 18, 19 points a game? I know it was like in the 130s in the country. So if he could get Wyoming into the mid 60s in one season, which would be about a mid 20s points per game, I think that'd be a really good step forward. And it's possible that we could do more. With the portal, it's possible. You land the right guys, you ran the right quarterback, especially. So the big thing is going to be for him to find a quarterback. And with him not being in Laramie, I think it'd be ideal if he could get there, right, and talk with the current group of quarterbacks. And I'm sure he'll still be able to via phone. But as we all know, person to person is much better. So there is your OC update. Again, I'll give it a very high grade. This is a guy who is young and upcoming, was wanted by some Power 4 schools. Virginia Tech was being reported that he's being hired by them. And in the last offseason, so Wyoming has somebody who has some chops, and now he's got his work cut out for him. So we'll see what he does there, and we welcome him to WyoNation, and we'll see how he does. So we are also here at the end of December, and of course, that means the transfer portal. And Wyoming, in the past couple of days, has taken some more hits in the portal. So let me get another screen share going for you. I just posted this up on WyoNation.com. An updated tracker. And let's get that bucked out. So Wyoming has now lost 11 players to the portal. These are in somewhat chronological order. They should be pretty close, right? So we all know about Durr, Kelman, Broadway, Sandy. And then kicking off this next batch was Lucas Samsula, a defensive tackle. I know that Savell really liked, a very good physical specimen, a guy coming off, some injuries, did his Achilles, had some knee problems in the past. And we'll see what happens there. I'd imagine with him being either from Oklahoma or Texas, I'd imagine that's where he's going back down there to play some football. Elsewhere, Cooper Mayland, I don't even think he played a game in his years in Laramie. So he has announced his intention to go. Then you have Gabriel Ichuku a very highly sought after defensive tackle in last year's freshman signing class. He redshirted this year and then again gone. So again, if you have talented players, redshirting them makes no sense in this day and age. And I don't know if he was close to being ready to play or not. We'll see. I know physically he had the size to play. I don't know strength wise if that's what he was lacking. But even when Wyoming was down to basically like 2 and 3 defensive tackles at the end of the season, he never got a sniff. So very interesting there. One that I just saw today that he announced, I do believe yesterday, that I didn't see, wide receiver Jalen Bean. He was a JUCO kid out of the Jayhawk Conference who came to Wyoming last year. Had a couple catches, but really didn't make an impact. But how about these 3 today? Wyoming today has lost 3 defensive backs to the portal, including their 2 starters, Marky Grant and Tyrese Boss, will be going to the portal, as well as it was just announced a few hours ago, Caleb Merritt, another senior graduate. I don't know. He's played some wide receiver. He's played some safety. I think he's played some corner, but Caleb Merritt announced his intentions to go to the portal. Obviously, the 2 big ones are Grant and Boss. Wyoming's 2 starting corners on a top 25 defense are now heading out the door. And I guess it's not much of a surprise because if you watch college football, I would say outside of quarterback and offensive tackle, and then probably right defensive line, cornerbacks. If you're a good cornerback, you're getting paid, and I would expect Boss will be a Power 4 school for sure. Grant, I'm not sure. He had a pretty solid year. I don't know. He is also from Texas, and I do believe a nephew of former Wyoming coach Mike Grant. So we'll see what's going on there. I'd imagine Grant will be heading somewhere back to Texas. But Tyrese Boss just had a great breakout year. Was really, really valuable to the defense, and now he is out the door. So I guess the good news for Wyoming is we've been pretty good at developing corners. But at the same time, if you're not able to find 2 good corners who could step right in next year, right, the defense could take a step back. And if the offense doesn't improve at all, you're looking at a really ugly season. So that's my only concern. But I trust that with the system we play, we'll be able to find some guys who can come in and play, right? I mean, we found Grant and Boss. So maybe our next Grant and Boss are already on the roster, or maybe they know they've identified those players in the portal already, and they'll be trying to get them from a smaller school to come here to Wyoming. So 11 subtractions already, and I would expect that number to rise more. So there is your portal update. I will say that Salvel had a list of, I think, 13 players he mentioned in a press conference that he wanted to stay, and he was pretty sure that we were able to keep most of them. And I would imagine that looking at that list right now, there's a good 3 to 4 of those 13 that are already in there, right? Chris Durr, you'd imagine, is on that list, someone he wanted to keep. Sam Sula, for sure, the way you talked about him. And then your 2 starting corners, right? So there's 4 right off the bat. 4 out of 13 out the door. But it is what it is, right? There's not much you can do if players play well. And the problem is these players are being shopped around by these blood-sucking agents who are just offering they're going to schools and asking, "Hey, how much would you take for this guy? How much would you pay this guy?" And they're coming them with numbers that we don't know if they're fake, we don't know if they're real, but they're just basically baiting people to hit the portal saying, "Hey, I talked to blank, blank, blank school before I even talked to you, and they said they would give you X." And these players are hitting the portal. So it's a system that can't sustain this way. They got to find a way to make this better, and I don't know what the answer is. But for schools at Wyoming, we're just going to have to embrace that. Right, our roster is going to be a year-to-year proposition, and I guess if you can get a track record of getting guys into the Power 4, maybe that's your best way to sell you. Say, "Hey, we'll get you to the Power 4. Come here. We'll play good football. We'll win, right? And that's where the winning needs to come. And we'll get you to the school that you want to get to. I don't know. I don't know how you frame it. It's a very difficult job these days for these football coaches recruiting and retaining players. So there's your portal update. So OC and portal. Again, the portal opens officially on January 2nd. So we still have about 10, 11 days before it opens, and then we'll see. But I would expect we'll see at least 4 or 5 names at least in there, and Wyoming will be, 15, 16, 17 players in the portal. And then we'll see if some arrive late. I'd imagine after Christmas, you'll see an uptick. Players will spend some time with their families, and then they'll get back to thinking about football and really have to make a decision here in the next couple of weeks. So it keeps us, I don't know if it keeps us entertained, but it keeps us busy here at WyoNation this time of year, and we'll figure out what's going on with the portal, and we'll keep you updated the best you can on, hopefully, right, when that portal opens, hopefully they'll act fairly quickly, and hopefully in that first week, we'll be hearing reports of people coming to Laramie where they can really, sell the programs, sell the university, and get some guys in. So it's going to be a big wave because, right, you got to get those guys in before school starts. And I don't know, I haven't looked up when registration and all that is due for the semester. So that's something that I need to educate myself about so we can know when really is a drop dead date to get these guys into school. So some of you may know that. If you're watching and drop it in the box here in the chat box. I'd be really happy to know what that is. So I think that's pretty good here. Unfortunately, solo tonight, but wanted to get you guys the information, especially after the big offensive coordinator hire on Friday. So if you just came in, watch the replay. I got a good breakdown of what this guy's about, but a guy who runs a modern multiple offense that's run-based, it's physical, and then the biggest thing to me is he's all about passing efficiency. And I didn't mention this before, but his offenses in the FCS were all top-notch in yards per pass attempt. And if you followed anything I've written in the past 15 years about Wyoming football and their offense, it's yards per pass attempt. And this guy runs efficient offenses where his quarterbacks have really good yards per pass attempt, which again is your number one indicator on offense if you're going to win a game or not. Pretty statistically proven. So to get a guy who understands that and can develop a scheme around that concept is music to my ears. So really happy that Christian Taylor is here, and we will see what happens with him. So before I head out here, I want to thank you all for following WyoNation this year through this football season and this ongoing basketball season. Have safe travels this week as you gather for Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas, and we will be back soon here. I'll be back soon with the rest of the game with WyoNation as we'll break down some wrestling. We'll break down some football offseason, and we'll, of course, break down some basketball with the Cowboys off to a very good start this season. So, yeah, until then, everybody take care. Have a Merry Christmas, and we'll catch you all real soon on WyoNation.com.